Welcome. Welcome to Facility Manager Focus, part of the Masterminds Media Network. And I've got a very special co host with me today, right here, right next to me, Mr. Bill Gruss. Bill, welcome to the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Uh, Now, I know this might be a little different for you, right? So you haven't done many. You've done a couple of podcasts
Couple. I've done a
before,
couple.
mainly talking about CrossFit, I think.
Yeah, pretty much only. Yes.
And we might talk a little CrossFit later, but today, facility manager focus, it's all about facilities, manufacturing facilities and other facilities and all the things that go into facilities. And I met Bill Gruss about 7 years ago when I started in the HVAC business. And that's what we're talking about today, HVAC. And I remember my first day in the HVAC business. Trivia question, Bill Gruss, do you remember the first account that we went to, my first day at Waldrop Mechanical?
Um, was it the Poinsett Club?
No. Is that your final answer?
Did it begin with a P?
It kind of does. It's pump is in the name.
Pump me up.
Sulzer Pumps.
Nice.
That was the first one that I went to. And what's amazing about not knowing a lot about HVAC at that time, I remember one of the first of all, getting up to the roof. I didn't think through what all is going to be involved in this new occupation. But if you remember at Sulzer's Pump, we couldn't go up, and they have that little lift inside.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
uh, I've only been up there that one time, and I thought, is this what I've gotten myself into?
That was a little squirrely too. That was a little bit crazy because you had that huge 40-foot attached ladder on the back of the building, or you could go up their special little interior lift that's used to like shift pumps and other supplies that they work with on big shelving so they could ride that up to the roof. So either one was a little bit like not hokey, but a little bit definitely a stretch if you have never been on a roof before, let alone a high roof.
Yeah, y'all forgot to ask me in the interview process if I was scared of roofs because that that was the first thing that I realized that, and you're right, that was kind of a tricky little thing, and then you had to step over to get onto
Hmm.
the roof. So let me ask you this: what extreme situations have you come across getting to the equipment? Because I know that even in my short time in the business, sometimes getting to the unit you have to do some pretty, scaling the ladder or scaling a wall or jumping from one ledge to the other. Have you had anything that was difficult like that?
Oh yeah, there's always challenges with any space, and some of them are just on a roof, and if you had to jump off the roof, you probably wouldn't die, but some are just just terribly close to the edge, and back in the day, they didn't really give too much thought about safety, and you just would be backed up against a 40-foot drop, and you're working on a unit, and you got like 2 foot between you and the edge of the roof. Sometimes there's a little knee wall, sometimes there's not, and that'll make you draw up a little bit. And usually you don't have to like jump from one thing to the next, but a lot of times it's close with a ladder, and if you're putting a 40-foot extension ladder up, that's a little bit unnerving if you haven't climbed a ladder, or let alone a extension ladder at all. It's like that's getting up a 40-foot ladder and having that springy feel.
Ooh,
It's a
that
little
is
bit
something. I, I
exciting.
remember I remember watching some people go up a fully extended ladder, and I thought, my, that's part of the job that you don't think about. But Bill, tell us a little bit. So what we're doing today, we're always about the coolest products, people within this manufacturing construction world that we're swimming in. But today we're talking about HVAC. So we have some HVAC folks, including Mike the Hammer backstage. We're going to bring him on. And we're going to talk to a guy named Devin Cooley that's got a very interesting HVAC product. So be sure to stick around with us, ask questions. The comments are turned on. Would love to hear from you. Bill, I know you spent some time in the Navy. And how did that experience in the Navy lead to an HVAC career?
Good question. Great question. I was on a submarine and we had AC, air conditioning on that thing, as you'd probably imagine. It seems logical to imagine to me, but
Yeah,
it
but
had
but, but
different.
it's interesting. We probably not. There's probably somebody out there. You got to have a way to keep it cool down there, right?
Well, you think logically you could say yes, but logically you could say, hey, well, below the sea, it's cold.
Oh,
Why
yeah,
would you need to cool it off? But
true.
that submarine makes a lot of heat in there, so you got nuclear power making steam, and that steam makes things hot, and you have to cool it
Mm,
off. So,
yeah,
um, but they have different kinds of air conditioners down there, and you still have coolers for food, and you still have uh, air conditioning kind of devices that may or may not be something we see here. We see some lithium bromide units and some other eccentric kind of things, but it was always interesting to me, and I love the idea, and it gave me a background to HVAC and mostly the cooling and also controls, which is a lot highly inter connected to the HVAC. So that's pretty much where I got
yeah.
started.
And you've really had your hands. Of course, you're in management now, but you've had your hands on the equipment. You've been a technician. You've been in set. You've had essentially every role under that umbrella of HVAC. Is that right?
Yeah, I've been through it, and a lot of people come down different channels to get to the point of working with HVAC. And there's different courses and classes you can take. And I went through the military, and some people just do it by looking at YouTube and a lot of different ways to do it and get used to it. But for me, it was the military, and that's how I learned. So maybe a little bit different, but I've touched a lot of different things. And one thing I've learned over the course of time is like never say I've seen it all because you haven't.
That's right. And maybe you haven't seen this product that we're going to talk about today. So there's always something new. There's always something new. Things are always advancing. You've probably seen a lot of advancements through your career with the technology. And I feel like we're at this time when it's getting ready to be a super big change with AI and with the all the data, the Internet of Things, and what what's your initial thoughts on where this might be going, or some of the things of the future? Are you excited about it?
Oh yeah, I mean you can't stop it. It's definitely going to go. You already see it with stoves and refrigerators. Like it connects to the Wi-Fi and it's on the internet. You can access it through your smartphone or smartwatch. I mean, it's crazy. So air conditioning it's already getting there. And
We just got a question, Bill. I hate to interrupt you. Eric Swanson, any chance you guys could air condition Roebuck, South Carolina? What's the heat load in Roebuck, South Carolina? That's hey, we'll take on that project. It's a work in progress. Really warm in the South. The air conditioning business is not hurting in this area, is it?
No, definitely not. It's definitely a favorite in our South Carolina, yeah, climate. Everybody gets used to air conditioning, and if your air conditioning goes down, it stops it. It stops it, and we're looking for the next air conditioning technician to get over there and fix it. So,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that if you live in Roebuck and you're anywhere near Wolverine Coatings, it's going to be an extra hot spot there with Eric sitting in that chair.
Oh, absolutely. All the things going on at Wolverine Coatings, that's a hotbed of activity. But hey, so sometimes the way that Bill and I operate, we're talking to folks like our next guest. That's going to be a facility manager of 1.5 million square feet. I'd love to have the maintenance out there, Bill, but he's
That
just
would
he's
be
just a little out of
awesome.
my reach. And I don't know if he'd talk to me or not. Mike,
He's
the Hammer, what's going on, Mike?
Not much, guys. How y'all doing today?
We're doing good. For the folks, including Bill, you guys haven't met. You want to tell us a little bit about your background and where you are today, and kind of what some of your job duties entail.
Sure. Yeah, so I've been basically automotive tier one supplier. Been working for this place for 28 years. Um, like I said, 1.5 million square foot, a little
Hmm.
over. I think we've got 80 something air handling units on the roof and thereabouts places. But This time of year, they getting stressed. That's for sure. And if
Yeah.
they got any problems, you know it real quick, and
Yep.
everybody's telling you.
Yeah. Now
So,
in that 28 years, Mike, now we call Mike the Hammer, right? Because Mike is a no nonsense, call it like it is, throw down the hammer, get to the point. Am I right, Mike?
absolutely, you know real quick where you stand with me.
Hey, I like that. I like that. So let me ask you this. Through all the years, you've probably worked with many different HVAC contractors, providers. You've probably fired some. You probably loved some. Tell us about your experience working with companies in the HVAC world, what you like, what you don't like, or anything that comes up in your mind.
You know, they're all unique, and it's a lot of it is the people they've got there, right? I've had companies that I really liked, and then personnel changes, and all of a sudden they went from this really great company, really great service provider to somebody that's like, "What's going on here, guys?" And having
Yeah.
to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And then work with some that didn't like them, you know, years ago, and then give them another chance. Come in, it's a completely different bunch. You know, the management of the company and the employees make the difference, right? And all it takes is one change to either go good or bad.
Amen to that. And it's something that we've talked about. I've got folks that would like to do business with us, but they've got a favorite technician that's with another company.
Yeah.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, the sales guy can come in, he can say all sorts of nice things, but the guy that I'm going to be talking to is the guy that's going to be telling me the guy that's got his hands on the equipment, right, Bill? I mean, we've heard that time and time again, and getting the right technician. How important, Mike, is it to get the right technician on a site that clicks with you?
It makes or breaks you. I mean, like in my situation, we're dealing with 1,400 people, right? Well, AC goes out, you got 1,400 people that's ready to hang you.
Yep.
I mean, let's be honest, they're ready
No
to
Yeah,
string
patience
you up from
there.
the rafters.
right.
So, you know, the biggest thing I've got with the guys that I work with is tell me the truth. I don't
Yeah,
sugarcoat it. If it's bad, it's bad. Tell me it's bad. Don't try to whatever. If you messed up, tell me you messed up. I mess up all the time. Don't lie to me. That's my
Yep.
oh
biggest
gosh,
thing. You know, tell me the
yeah,
truth. If you made a mistake, you made a mistake. It is what it is. If you're troubleshooting something, you replace it and you go, yeah, that wasn't it.
Yeah.
It might be this. Okay, well, tell me we're throwing parts at it because we don't really know what it is. Don't tell me, yeah, I know what it is, and then come back. Well, yeah, spend another 20 grand.
Yeah.
What?
what
I've got a chiller
man,
I'm going through that with right now.
Communication's so
tell
important.
us about the chiller situation. Tell us what's going on.
So we have a and I'm it's inherent to the brand. It's it's 350 horsepower chiller, a train unit, and they have problems with these units. It is just a inherent design problem,
Yep.
and they they're the oil doesn't circulate properly in them. Something about the way they designed it, the way they engineer it, they missed something, and they know it. They won't admit it, but they know it. The every technician's ever come out. It's like, yeah, it's a 350 horsepower unit, ain't it? Yeah. Well, they vibrate so bad because they don't get the oil back into the compressors. They cause holes, and you leak 480 pounds of Freon out.
Mm.
So I'm on my fourth leak repair this year.
Gosh.
Yeah, yeah, and I've got four of these units.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're only 6 years old.
Goodness gracious.
So I've dumped almost $400,000 just in Freon this year. In
Wow.
repairs, just in these 5 units, and they run my HVAC in one building.
Let me ask you this. When you have a situation like that, and so of course I've been talking to a lot of facility managers, and I'm starting to understand that dynamic of, okay, you're someone that you're answering to, whether that be a plant manager or an executive or whatever the case might be, you've got to tell him, I've spent $400,000 in refrigerant. Is that a tough conversation? I mean, it's essentially out of your hands. How do you go into that conversation to defend yourself, but also state the situation?
Well, unluckily, they we've had this problem going on for years now with these units, and
Mm-hmm.
they understand it.
Right. Yeah.
And we're to the point now where it's like, okay, this is not going to work long term. We're putting way too much money into this system just in repairs. Yeah, it's not to end of life, but we're actually looking at doing a completely different system, ripping all these things out and putting in some redundancy.
Right.
And it's not like, overall, I like the chiller system way to condition your air, because your parts in your air conditioner are so much simpler, right? You're not dealing with the freon in the air conditioner and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah.
when you do have that, it's individual units. So
Right.
if one goes down, it don't kill the whole plant. Where I'm at,
Yeah.
if one goes down, it
Everything
don't
is
hurt me.
attached
But
to
when
that
the second one
entirely.
goes down, I'm dead.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we didn't put enough redundancy into the system to account for this much problems, right? So if you lose a
Yeah.
unit, okay, now our temperature went from 76, 77 to 82 inside the plant, and that's a big jump.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Mike. Do you use do you use Train to work on the chillers, or do you have a service company that works on those chillers? What's your experience with that type of thing? Would you rather have the manufacturer's service the
I would
chillers?
myself personally, I'd rather have the manufacturer working on the equipment. That way they know, what their systems are doing, right? What they're having problems with. And they can go back to their technicians and their engineers to maybe fix those problems.
Right.
Mhm.
But I don't know if they really do that. I don't know if they listen to their technicians, in all honesty.
Mhm.
Well, I
But
don't know
I've
that
had,
I don't know that channel's as open as you'd think it would be
it
with the
should be, but
manufacturer.
the engineers worried about, we got to make it for this amount of money. And the
Right.
technicians going, well, it ain't lasting, right?
Right.
So it's
Have they not to get technical, but have they made any recommendations on some kind of vibration analysis or a vibration reduction
oh yeah,
between?
they come in. Well, this is the fix, and they added dampeners to it, and they added this, and they've added that, and yeah, no, none of it worked. It's after the fact engineering. It's just
Yeah,
if you get under 300 horsepower, you're fine. They
they're
work
fine.
great, and I have several that are under 300 horsepower. I don't have any problems with them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, they work like a dream. It's just over 300 horsepower. It creates so much vibration. They messed up on a calculation somewhere. Some engineer did, and
Yeah.
I get it. I
Well,
mean, it is
well,
what it is.
that's interesting. I appreciate you sharing that with us. So I do want to start talking about some of the office units, because this is what this new product that Devin's got, and talking about just your package unit up on the roof, taking care of those folks, those 1,800, did you say, that keeping them cool. And so when it comes to maintenance of a DX package unit, gas pack, and all the filter changing and that sort of thing, what's your kind of thoughts on maintenance, and what you like to see from a company that's done maintenance, and what's too much, and what give us your thoughts on that.
The company that I use does a really good job. They have a laid out PM program for every one of my units.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Oh,
have,
specific to each unit is what you're saying.
yeah, because I have all different size units. I got anywhere from, believe it or not, I got a 5 ton all the way up to 150 ton. So,
And these are gas packs.
well, the 150 tons, yeah, they have gas in those too. But
Yeah.
the gas packs, most of our stuff has gas in it to do the heat.
Mhm.
And of course we run all different types of stuff inside the offices. We're each in, you've got your ductwork stuff where you control your air conditioning unit never stops, but you control the temperature through heat to different offices and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
VAV system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
wasn't remembering the word there for a second,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. The VAVs, and
VAVs.
it's steady making cool air, and the VAVs in each office control.
Yep.
See, I've learned a little something in the 7 years. You guys are way far advanced on me, but I'm picking up a little bit here and there.
Yeah,
So
and we run, we have a control system where basically we turn it on at 6 o'clock in the morning and turn it off 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and it doesn't run on the weekends. And I get phone calls all the time from my boss, turn the air on.
Yeah.
He's sitting there on the weekend. Why didn't you tell me he's working today? I'd made sure it was on.
Yeah.
Well, good. We're going to talk a little bit about the lights and the energy and all of those things right now, because one of the things I love to do, guys, is when I'm on LinkedIn and I'm looking at all these profiles, I look for those products, for those people that get my attention. And then I do a little digging and research. And then you find out, hey, these are some cool people with cool products out there. And we've got one of them today. And I want you guys to meet him. I want us to together to talk to him about his product. And let's welcome him to the stage here, Devin Cooley.
Hey,
Gentlemen,
Devin.
how you doing?
Good morning, Devin. And now you're out in California, correct?
Actually, Arizona.
Arizona. I knew it was out west.
Yeah.
So a little early there, but I'm sure you've had your coffee and maybe ready to talk a little HVAC.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, no, I get up at 5, so I've been up for a while, and it's already 93, and it's only 8:30 again.
Oh, wow. So you know a little something about the heat out there too.
A little bit. We don't have the humidity y'all do, but it's still hot.
Now, Devin, let me ask you this. Do you like you said you get up early. Does that mean you like to exercise and get out there and do some things like Russ here?
Yes, sir. And I get up there. The girlfriend and I go to the gym at about 5:30 every morning. So
Nice.
Oh, wow. There you go. Yeah. And what do you think about going to the gym? Why is it that you do that?
yeah, for me, it's the physical side, but also the mental side, right? You get your blood flowing, your mind focused, kind of get the hard stuff going for the day. Kind of have to talk about like, in your bed's your first accomplishment of the day, and for me, the next one is then the gym, and then you cook your breakfast, you get ready for work, get your mindset going. So by the time I get here, no later than 8, I've already been up for 3 hours, knocking off things on my list.
I love it. I love it. Start the day, check some things off. Bill and I, we love to he does CrossFit. I do some F3.
Nice.
And so we believe in the exercise and getting started early. Would love to hear, of course, I had a chance to talk to you on the phone, but I'd love for you to kind of share your HVAC journey, how you ended up in this world. And we'll ask you questions to pull it out. So I won't make you talk for 5 minutes, but tell us a little bit about how you got started in HVAC.
Yeah, so I guess like most things, kind of by accident, lost a bet. It was never my intention to be in HVAC, let alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, about 13, 14 years ago, a good buddy of my dad and I, was a general contractor, was messing around with HVAC stuff as part of his builds, and started seeing some things come around on the HVAC side out here in the desert that were trying to be more efficient and kind of renewable. And so we started for a couple of years dabbling in that, seeing what was out there, and realized that there's not a lot in the HVAC side. Not much has changed since Willis Carrier's designed in 1916. Things have gotten better in spite of the air conditioning cycle, as far as electronics and tech on that side, but the loop's kind of the same. And so about 2 years of fiddling with that, we finally realized, okay, there was a thermal application side that we could try to implement on the refrigeration loop to increase efficiency. We found a couple other products that were okay, and then finally in the fall of 2013, we found a product called SunTrack that had these mirrored concentrators that were inside of a box, kind of those big ones you see out in the desert that do large scale commercial heating for salt and kind of turbines and whatnot. This was modular and smaller. And so the original inventor was using it for water, but we started talking to him a little over 10 years ago. We're like, can you do some modifications and we put Freon through this? And he was like, I guess you could, but why would you want to do that? We're like, don't worry about that, just come see us. And so the fall of 13 and early 14, we founded SunTrack here down in Arizona, moved all of his IP and acquired his stuff to bring here and manufacture it here in Arizona. And we began more in the residential space because that was where more of the more efficient technology and the compressor side was. The commercial is always the last to kind of get the cooler new tech as they prove it out on the smaller resi side. So back then was 2-stage was the new kind of thing on regular systems, right? There was always mini splits, inverter stuff, but for normalized residential products here, 2-stage was the new thing. So we were able to put our thermal boost on a 2-stage, which allowed to be in first stage more often than not, getting full cooling. We dabbled in that. Variable speed started to come about on the residential side, which gave us a much more of a breadth of efficiency gain. And so we kept playing with that for a while and trying to disrupt the market that's very resistant to change. And because
Very resistant to change. I just want to kind of amen that. I had asked Bill earlier about what has changed, but I agree with you. It's there are some things, but the loop, as you said, the loop is the same, right? Right, Bill?
Yeah.
The loop is the same. And so I love this just to kind of you saw an opportunity. You kind of dabbled in HVAC. You saw an opportunity. You guys started saying, "Hey, this isn't exactly what you designed this for, but we might be able to use it over here." And then got involved in the residential game, and then take us from there. What starts happening? What you start seeing in residential, and where we go from there.
Yeah, so we started getting traction in some wins there. It was effective. We were saving about 35 to 40% of the energy usage on a residential 2-stage air conditioner. We're like, okay, this is cool. This is working. We kept tweaking for years on the R&D side of the actual panel itself, of how it tracked the sun, what temperatures we were trying to maintain and not exceed because of the envelope necessary for it. We're not adding temperature and pressure necessarily. We're displacing, right? If the 2-stage went to 2nd stage, nothing happened. We can't add anything else to it. The loop has what it requires. And so there was a lot of play with that. And like anything with an early adopter, that's just kind of as far as we were getting, because we were an accessory. We were attaching to other people's brands of air conditioners. And it's a little daunting and kind of scary for especially residential homeowners when you're going to buy a brand new air conditioner, whether it be Trane, Carrier, whatever brand it is, and you're going to add this accessory, much like buying a new Mustang from Ford that does not have a turbo, but you're going to take it to a speed shop, add the turbo, right? You have a very small amount of people that are willing to do that, as opposed to just, well, why can't I just buy from Ford with that? I'm like, well, it doesn't currently exist. So we're in this very niche market of people that are contractors and users that are willing to do this with us.
Right. Yeah. I was going to ask you, who was the folks in that residential space when you were, kind of working with that product? What type of customer avatar was doing that? Was it someone with a large house, a large energy bill, or just someone that kind of geeked out on the tech?
Well, the short answer is yes. The biggest driver for most solutions is always pain. And so anyone that had a lot of pain, so they had high energy bills or a big space or what it may be, that was always a first attention getter. Like, you can help me do what? And the other ones behind that, they were the ones that were geek out on the tech, whether they were greenies or they already had solar electric and they were looking for things to be cool and edgy and just wanting the next best thing. And so help leverage that. I go, okay, that's people like this. What else can we help make this as a better solution?
Mm-hmm.
And so, the pitfalls of that installation of having to take a brand new system, you got to evacuate all the refrigerant, you got to cut into the discharge line after the compressor, pipe it to us because we're in line with the refrigeration loop of the air conditioner. We're not external.
Got it.
On the high pressure side, Devin, right?
Correct. And so there's not a heat exchanger in that kind of sense. We're actually piped in. All the refrigerant flows from the air conditioner through us and right back into the system, back to the condenser. And so we're in line as a refrigeration loop booster, kind of a thermal compressor, if you were.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so I'm going to ask an average dude question because I'm not as technical as those guys. But if I'm taking the coil and I'm cutting that coil and then I'm attaching something else that's going to continue the refrigerant run, instead of doing this, I'm going through your system.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was my attempt to clarify that. So
we're at the external loop on the refrigeration line on the
external loop on the refrigeration line. Got it. Yeah.
So this is kind of like the old school technology of the refrigerators used to be in your RVs and stuff, right?
The old ammonia
use the propane. Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Where the little pilot light and that help heat the loop.
Yep.
Same sort of concept where we're taking the condenser needs the temp and pressure that the compressor puts out to overcome the ambient delta to condense.
Right.
So that's always the biggest kind of tech discussion I have with the technicians, especially some engineers, is like, well, you can't add pressure and temperature to the refrigerant loop. I'm like, correct. We don't want to add temperature and pressure. We want to displace. So I always take the basic kind of drawing and show them, okay, let's agree on the refrigeration loop, being these kind of 4 components and how they flow. And they always laugh at, like, obviously. I'm like, cool, just want to be on the same page. We go through the different things of how that works. And they go, okay, well, if you had like a larger commercial system, you'll have 2 compressors. The second one comes on and you need more cooling and need more lift. We're like, correct. I go, okay, now bear with me. So if you take the other compressor in theory out and add us, you're getting that same lift. So it has a condenser, you get the same temperature and pressure as if you would if the compressor was doing it. Like, okay, that's what we're doing. We're not displacing a whole compressor, but that's why we deal with now mainly variable speed systems that can ramp down. We can do that temperature and pressure lift to give the system 100% temperature and pressure at a lower amp draw.
What are your thoughts, Bill? What's going through your head as you hear Devin kind of unveiling where this technology came from, where it started?
I try to validate in my head, like, okay, so how can this save us energy? Well, I'm going to run my compressor less, right? It should run a lot less amps. I have less carbon footprint. I got a reduction in my greenhouse gases and all that good stuff, all those buzzwords. I guess from a downside, I'd be concerned about all that extra system outside my package unit having, exposure to leaks or whatever. And I think that would
Interesting
come.
point.
That would come to my mind. Obviously, you've been down this road a little bit. How are you combating?
But yeah, let me before we I feel like we're almost talking about the commercial units now, and I want to kind of explain just so we stay on. You were in residential. You saw that maybe you could. Where did you go from that as you were learning? I kind of interrupted you. Sorry.
No, perfect. So actually, and Bill, that's part of what happened with our transition to more commercial is that aspect. So being on a residential side, especially down here in Arizona, a lot of 2-story tile roofs. Our panel, the thermal collector, needs to be on the roof facing south to get the best, because the mirrors track the sun, so we need to have the best facing sky. But with that, a lot of the condensers are on the ground, so you got to pipe, two sets of piping, one up and one down, from the ground condenser up to the roof wherever the thermal collector is.
Right.
So that's a lot of brazing if you want to use a rolled or
and
hard.
Freon.
And Freon, you want to make sure we try to keep within 75 feet of the condenser to limit the run, the pump of all that between the oil and everything else. So there was a lot of installation focus and concern to make sure things were done properly, to not damage or put stress on the system by trying to enhance it. And so that led us to it was a much more of a niche application for residential. So as we started getting more into commercial and having more success there, we as a team sat down and go, okay, we were starting over and starting anew, looking at the opportunities and the applications ahead of us. Where will we focus our time and energy to have the best effect for us, for the contractors, for the end user? And that was, let's focus on commercial RTUs, because the RTUs right here, we can put the collector right next to it to limit the run and the piping exposure there. And it's a much easier, simpler install and more applicable, as 90+% of the roofs are flat. So the residential, to make sure the roof faced the right way, you couldn't put it too far away, the angle. I mean, you get a lot of things, variables that came into play that made it less attractive from the feasibility of installation. And so that's what led us to commercial. Was okay, there's more of them on a roof. So from a sales perspective, right? You're going to close one sale, they're fairly the same, whether it's going to be close 1 or close 10.
Right.
Similar type absolutely.
Time and energy. So from that aspect, let's focus on where there's more meat. Commercial customer uses a lot more power and a lot more energy to cool generally, especially depending upon their application of the space. And so for all of these things, we were like, okay, let's focus more on commercial. It's the path of least resistance.
Yeah. So, and I love that, because in my work, just with Waldrop and facility manager focus and masterminds in general, I'm talking to these folks, and sustainability and energy. It's the word. It's such a buzzword, and it's such an important thing. And companies, Mike, I'll let you speak to this. Have you heard anything about energy savings down at your plant?
I track it every day.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've for me, it's air leaks, it's LED lighting, it's HVAC, how you controlling it, night, day, when occupied, not occupied, that kind of stuff. My question for you, Devin, is what is the return on investment on this? How much more is it to add this system? And then what is life expectancy?
Yeah, so to add sort of the collector portion of it that adds the extra meat to it, and now our own systems have a little more in it, but the increase, let's say, it's a standard kind of system versus ours, it'll probably be about a 40-ish% increase in cost. But because the systems qualify for the federal tax credits of the 30%.
Okay, that's
so the ROI for the up.
I'm not big on the federal tax credit because it's going away at some point in time. So that's why I'm asking. Let's just say straight up, without any tax credit, what's your return on investment? What is it going to? I invest 40% more. What does it give me back?
Probably 7 years less.
About 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
7 years without that tax credit.
Yeah.
You're going to get a check mark as a, hey, we are using renewable energy. We
Yeah,
are doing.
I get that, but
Oh yeah, no. Hey, I brought you on, I brought you on here to be the
and
hammer.
Devin, I'm not throwing you under the bus. I got the name the hammer, but I asked those
Hey,
questions for a
to
reason
be,
because
yeah.
I can't put something in. It's a 7-year investment. I got to have 3 years or less. So
When you put in, when you have to replace that air conditioner, you're going to buy it anyway.
I am, and if I got to spend 40% more, I got to justify it, and to justify it, I got to pay it off in 3 years.
But how long are you going to run that system?
Most systems, in all honesty, if you get 15 years out of them, you did good.
Okay.
Agreed.
You know, I mean, 10 is about your max, and you start investing so much money after 10 years, you're better off to replace them.
Yeah.
But from a business standpoint, you know, I have to look at it from a business standpoint. I'm not going to go buy a business that's going to take me 7 years to pay off. I'm going to go buy a business that's going to take me less than 3 years to pay off.
Hey, Mike, I got a question for you though. If you had that incentive, even though you're right, it won't be here tomorrow, but if it's here during this discussion when you're buying
and I agree with that. I agree with that, but I'm looking at it a little different, and I think a little different. You know, Bill, don't y'all don't take this personal. It's just I'm not into government handouts, okay? Because government handouts will end, and when they end, generally is when it catches you in the pants. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. Yeah. With the government incentives. What is the payback on it?
3 years or less.
3 years less, and then it would be a viable investment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I certainly think that you may be right there, Mike. That we don't know what the future holds, but I certainly believe that these incentives to go to something that's renewable and not a finite situation makes sense.
It does. But I'll give you the thing I'm dealing with right now: EV cars.
Yeah. So here's the part we didn't talk about yet, because you asked me about the upsell. How long?
Yep.
That part pays back in 3 years, but the whole unit, because of the efficiency of everything else it's doing, the entire unit, air conditioner and the renewable side, will pay back in cash flow generally in 10 years or less.
Oh wow. Okay. Cool.
So you're gonna buy an RTU anyway, right? The rate,
yep.
10 times, which will never recoup.
Yeah, explain that to me. I didn't follow that for some reason. Can you explain to me what you just said there?
Yeah. So let's just take round numbers, for example. Let's say you're going to spend 10 grand already for an RTU, right?
Yeah.
Well, ours will cost, let's say 15 grand again for round numbers. That 5 grand extra will pay back itself with incentives in 3 years or less, or 7 without the incentive. But that whole 15 grand will pay back all of it in 10 years because of the efficiency.
That's the selling point to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've got a unit that's going to pay you back compared to another unit. By the time you get to have to replace it, it's paid for itself.
Correct. Yeah. You kind of
that's I like that. Now, other question is, you're in Arizona.
Correct.
Lots of sun, lots of heat, right? Year round, basically. How does it work in areas other than that? You know, you get outside of that area, Alabama, for example, solar power doesn't work here that great because we don't have the sun. We have a lot of cloudy days. So correct. How do you compensate for that?
No, great question. So ours, because we're solar thermal, right? So they're mirrors that are trapped. Also collect UVA and UVB rays. And so still get a sunburn on a cloudy day.
Yep.
That same kind of thing, right? That's where it'll happen. We're still collecting that heat energy and injecting it into the system. So it still gets a boost from all of that.
How does it affect your 40% though?
It might drop a little bit, but it's still pretty high. It's like 30, 40, in the mid to high 30s. And so it's still pretty efficient even with cloud cover.
Do you have a limit? Like we just talked about South Carolina and Arizona, but what about farther you go north? You have differences. Did you study any? How does it look for up north kind of?
Yes, that starts to drop off. And so we focus on what we call the Sun Belt states. So then the lower 19 because of one, the sun, two, the heat and humidity loads. And so that's what we're focused for the next 5 years. As we progress, and we'll start addressing ways that we can have an offering for the further north. But today, that's our focus because of those issues.
Right.
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on in that area, right? Yeah. And it seems like so much manufacturing is coming to this area. There's
Yep.
what I'm sitting here thinking about, Bill, is the logistics company that I just left, big white roof, these office package units, and there's so much room, unused room up there, right? It's like
Oh yeah.
this is the application for that sort of thing. Like these logistics companies need, that's what they need,
Yeah.
right?
You look at me. It gets past about 9 o'clock in the morning. I ain't going on that roof because you're gonna cook.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I believe I did hear a sizzle when I got up there. It was like,
Yeah.
if you've ever seen chicken cooking.
Well, and then you get the same effect you get from skiing, right? Where you start getting burnt under here and the reflection of those white roofs.
Yep.
Really, that's no joke.
So Devin, let's talk. You guys are still finishing up you and your dad, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys and your other brain trust, you've been tweaking on this product, but you got to manufacture it now. You guys aren't tapping into somebody else's deal. How's that going? How challenging is it to start manufacturing an entire unit?
Yeah. So again, yes, we were an accessory for the past 10 years. Just the panel, we were adding it to other people's air conditioners. And so a lot of the pitfalls with that was cutting into it, all that approach. And just it took the time and effort of just doing that, let alone the other questions and concerns from the users. So we focused, okay, ideally, we'd like to make our own air conditioner, kind of like the EV company Lucid. You guys heard of them?
Yeah.
Tesla, they're here in Arizona. They created first their battery platform. Their power platform was their first product, and they were selling that to F1 racing. And they were trying to shop it to the other EVs like Ford and GM and these guys, and no one wanted it because they had their own source for that. So after for years beating themselves up over this, they go, "What do we do?" And they're like, "Well, screw it. Let's just build the car around it." So that's what we've taken is we know on the commercial RTU side especially, while you have a lot of choices for brands and different things, there are very few real options you have for these RTUs. And some of the big boys have started to put some stuff out, like with Train with their E-Flex, and Carrier's working on some there, and Lennox has some other, where they're trying to get more variable speed into it, and a lot of them cost a lot more, and so it's not worth the up for most customers. To Mike's points, right? It's not worth the investment to get what ROI there may be there. And so with that and all the 13 years we've been in this industry doing all this, we made friends along the way, as you'd imagine, and we have a good buddy that's on our advisory board that's the VP of International Business for Daikin. And we were talking about, hey, he has people all over the world he works with for specialty projects and things. And we're like, we need some help with this. We try to make our own air conditioner. What do you think about that? He goes, I love it. And I have just the people we need to talk to.
Wow. So I love that.
Quick background for me. My mom's side is Colombian. And so I grew up with that. And I used to go there in the summers as a kid and kind of go visit family and cousins. And he goes, well, I got a plant that we're friends with that we do special small batch stuff with down in Colombia. And I was like, really?
Perfect.
And so they've been a manufacturer for 45 years. Right? They make everything from small residential things all the way to chiller sized units and refrigeration. So they're very well versed in all of this, and they make things for Daikin on specialty order side things, as most OEMs do. You got a tank, a aircraft carrier that big, it won't make small turns for anybody. Mm-hmm. So.
It won't make small turns for anybody. Let me just say this again, because I think it's so cool. You guys formed a relationship with someone that could help you, right? I mean, it's something I talk a lot about with masterminds. All things are connected. Meet great people, form a relationship, and hey, I met somebody from Daikin. He's got connections to help me build an air conditioner. I mean, that's awesome.
Right, and that like everything in all business, it's all about who you know.
Yeah, right.
And working together for so many years, he was like, let's go talk to my friends.
That's fantastic. That really helped you guys move the ball forward, and that was a big win. And how long ago was that? And kind of tell us about the evolution since then, and kind of where we're at now.
Yeah, so that began last August, where we can be in talks with them about, okay, here's what we'd like to do and like to build. What do you think about that? And so that began our journey of, okay, let's become an OEM. Right? Much like Apple. Apple designs everything, but they don't make it themselves. And so we took that similar approach. Like, okay, so what else do we need? And so that was one of our next first hires was our director of engineering, Sharon Dingus, who was a 20-year plus engineer with Train. She worked on like the smart grid side, product development, and stuff, and she understands all this. And we got talking to her about what we're doing and what our vision was. And she was like, I like it. I'm in. Like, where do I, sign me up, right? Because not your normal regular box. And like Mike was saying, we got to make it for this price. And it's got to do this. You know, we don't care what everybody else thinks or what the techs say in the field. We took the approach of like, we want to make the best unit that's hyper efficient. Right. So we're putting variable speed inverter scrolls. We've got direct drive fans. We're putting in a bunch of IoT sensor suite that'll talk to the cloud so you can see everything. So it'll talk and give you, actual live EER of what's happening. And then also make it tech friendly. It's easy to work on, easy to get to things. Things won't burn you as you try to reach around and grab things, and make it as positive for everyone involved in the chain, right? We're not worried about just getting the person to buy it at the end. And make sure our major partner in all this, the installers, don't hate it.
Hey, well, I've got to say something about that, because we've all had these things with everybody. My dad, everything he's ever opened, he always says, "Who is the engineer that put this thing together?" Right? I mean, it's like, Dad, somebody probably built something right at some point, but we have these things that are kind of like, oh, why do they do it this way? I can't get to the filter. That I remember one, you could not change the filter on the unit, like the way that it was positioned, and whoever installed it didn't know. They made it hard as heck to get to. What do you do? So I think that's funny. Did y'all think, hey, we don't want to do that because we've seen these other units, and that is a thing.
Especially with us, attached to so many different brands over the past 10 years. Right?
Yes.
All brands under the sun, trying to get in there.
Right.
Like, gosh dang, how we can't get in and out of here cleanly, effectively without it burning your hands. And so one of our big kind of mantras here, as a half joke, is we don't want you to ever say, well, it worked in the lab.
I hate that.
Been there, done that.
And so we were like, we live by that. We're like, you know what? We'll do it. We do it in the field. Then what happens? What else happens next? Because when you're in a clean, cool environment, it's right here in front of you. Of course it worked. When you're on a roof and it's 140 with the temperature and your hands are burning, the system's running. I'm like, that's a very different touch than when it's sitting there clean on a lab floor.
Yep.
And so that's a big part of our focus, is trying to be open to all that and and listening. We've talked to our techs over the years, and now after this design process, as we're finishing this and going to HRI testing, I want to make sure, what are we doing? What are we missing? What input can we get? And as we go, we're going to have through our login site where the techs can see the view of the systems and the monitoring. We have a little button that says, I wish it did. I wish it did. Click here.
That's cool. That is cool.
Whether it's
they kind of a lot of talking about earlier.
Yeah, no, that's the big thing for us. We're like,
because
we can only design it so much and try to think around the corner so much until it's in the field. And then now, so we know our generation 2 product will be much better than the first one, because we're going to get a lot more feedback.
So what kind of, and I'm thinking roofs, because that's what I deal with, is most 99% of probably 95% of my units are on the roof. What kind of extra weight does this add?
Yeah, so
percentage wise.
Yeah, so it's one collector per every 5 tons of cooling capacity, and one collector is about 225 pounds, and it's about 4 foot by 8 foot. And so it'll have at least 4 points of contact, which keeps it under 75 pounds per contact point. Which we talk to most of our roofer friends and roof applications. So that's pretty good. As you get to 2 or 3 collectors for like the 15 ton, that's try to make sure structurally you're good, you're over a truss and other things like that. So the things to consider on the mechanical roof side to make sure you're good.
So how big of units do y'all go up to?
Currently we're doing 5, 10, and 15 ton as our first product launch. And then we're going to look at 20, 25, and 30 as our next kind of round of that.
What's the actual wind potential, resistance potential on that?
A good question. I don't know. That'll be more on the engineering side. And we do mount these like traditional solar equipment. And so we'll have the racking, and we always recommend having a roofer come and put all that in and anchor it to the roof, however, whether it's non-penetrating, penetrating. Again, it depends on if it's TPO, asphalt, whatever kind of roof types that are. And they've got other anchoring applications for that to make sure that that's not an issue. So that's a good part, is that the collector itself is built more like a solar hot water collector. So it uses traditional solar clamps, and the racking, all of that is all kind of prefabbed and ready for that. And so we have engineering designs for those rackings depending on where you are. It's different down Miami-Dade than it is here in Phoenix, Arizona. And so there'll be slight variations for that, but they're fairly simple because it's just a pretty simple box, and it's 1, 2, or 3 per. So we also take up less room on the roof, and we're right next to the RTU, and leave the rest of the roof open for solar electric or anything else that might be applicable to that building to be more green.
Right. What types of sales conversations? I know you guys are still kind of developing, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're probably pretty close to game time.
Yes.
Give us an idea of who you're talking to, who you want to sell to, who you need to form partnerships with. But how's that, the marketing and sales aspect of it? How's that coming along?
Yeah, so and good, and so and having done this for 10 years now, we've kind of got some inroads and people we've made friendlies with, and it's again more again about pain. Right? Who has the most pain? So we're talking
Yes.
to kind of on the small side because we're doing 5, 10, and 15, looking at like restaurants, warehouses, office buildings, people that have a lot of air conditioners and a lot of load, and so that's always where we're looking to help alleviate pain and bring a solution that helps them. So they're going to save money there. The units will last longer and have less maintenance than needs because of the nature of them running a little more efficiently, and help that be the solution. The other thing that we've worked on now that we're finalizing now by the end of the month is kind of creative financing, right? Because a lot of restaurateurs, when they talk to them, like, look, I'd love to have your system. I don't have the cash flow to even buy the regular system I need when it dies. I wait until it absolutely dies, which is wild to hear from like a facility manager standpoint. They're like, so how often, what's your replacement plan? They're like, when it dies, and then what happens? We fix it one more time.
Yeah. One more time. We know a few like that over there.
Right? They're like bubble gum and baling wire. I'm like, that is okay. You know what I mean? And then some others have, sweep plans. Every 10 years, they sweep the roof. Right? So it's interesting to see that different organizations have their different approaches depending on their, capital programs they have available.
It depends on the capital they're making at the time too.
Right.
Yeah.
And then whether the bean counters want to give it to you or not.
There you go.
The guys want a new truck, so that's going to come first. And so the creative financing tool we're working at is kind of more like cooling as a service. And so like let's take like a fast food restaurant, for example. They need 4 10 tons on their roof, but they don't want to shell out all the capex for that. They don't have it, and also don't want to try to get a loan for that because it takes up their DTI capital to get loans for other things they need, like the food and other equipment they use in the restaurant. And so with this tool, they can take, okay, let's take those 4 units. We're going to bundle it together to give it a round number. Let's call it $100,000. They'll take the $100,000, and to the restaurateur, they've got to pay their first month's kind of subscription, right? Kind of like Netflix and everything else is these days. You pay a flat monthly fee, and with that financial tool will wrap in, so let's say it's a 7-year term. It'll wrap in a full warranty, bumper to bumper parts and labor, as well as maintenance costs and everything. And so you pay your flat, $1,000 a month for 4 units, and you get everything included for that 7 years. And so you don't have to play with it. You call a guy, or the system will tell them they need service, and it's a flat
rate
purchase where they.
I like that.
Interesting. Very interesting.
That is because there's all those calls that folks don't think about, and then it's like, okay, just give me a number where I can have a comfortable space, and I know how much I'm paying. Done.
Because how many guys, hopefully have repair and maintenance budget, and it's always too light. Right? The bean counters never give you enough for that. And they go, here's $500. I'm like, cool. Well, I got one service call, it's gonna cost me $2-3 grand. There goes that budget.
Yeah.
And so there's always that kind of, they have things in place, hopefully sometimes, and they're always too light, and they can't forecast that enough to be healthy. And so it's always a pain for everybody involved. The facility guys are like, I'm trying to scrape nickels to fix something that I have to fix, otherwise we can't make money. Right? So they don't even have to make sure the system runs properly, but then they put all the responsibility on you. And so using this tool that helps kind of alleviate that part of it. You can reallocate monies you have for repair and maintenance, you worry about everything else, and have a fixed monthly cost for the equipment, and you roll through. And with the energy savings we bring with our approach, it's almost a wash, depending on the application.
I really like that, Devin. I like the flat rate. I think that that's going to be attractive to folks. Let me say this, though. I hear you, these restaurants and that sort of thing, but what's going through my mind is all these manufacturing facilities, Bill. You've got the big stuff, the IntelliPacks back in the manufacturing area, but my office area almost always around here, 5, 10s, and 15s, right? Yep. The entire office area is typically those types of package units. A lot of, these are these 300-ton-ish type buildings with those office units up front. Then they get the sustainability check mark. Hey, we're doing something, Bill, what do you think?
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I mean, if you look at, every company's different, but if you look at us, I think probably we're 60% of the equipment we service is in that 5 to 10, 15 pound ton range. And, sure, we have our 350 chillers, but honestly, it's a lot of that small DX stuff like that.
And that simplification and something different, right? Something different in HVAC is something that Bill and I have talked about often, just because only the names change, right? It's the
Right.
same technician pool, it's the same offer, it's the same. So flat rate, I'm all in.
Mhm.
I can do a little sustainability check. It's definitely a conversation holder. Mike, let me ask you this. So let's pretend you were at a facility, had some office units and that sort of thing, and somebody wanted to talk to you about this new product. You were looking at replacing. You had 4 or 5 ton units that you were looking at replacing,
Yeah.
and somebody wanted to talk to you about that, and Devin threw his name in there. How does that go? What do you foresee happening on that?
I'll be honest with you, I'm intrigued with it. I wasn't really sure. I did a little reading on it and I wasn't 100% sold on it, but just listen to what they're doing and everything. I, I see where this is very viable, which is kind of odd for me, but
Well, hey, the purchase order's in your inbox.
I know. But I'll be honest with
Yeah,
you,
that's why
it's intriguing because if I look at a payback on a unit, it's going to save me enough energy to pay for itself in 10 years.
Mhm.
I can sell that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know, and you got, okay, this is not a startup product. It didn't start last week, didn't start last year. You're looking at, 10 years going now.
Yeah.
And one reason why I ask about the weight is, we have to be careful when we're doing our rooftop units because most of my units are rooftop units. Now, I have
Right.
very few. I think the smallest unit I've got is a 5 ton. I've got one of those. Everything else is 10 and 20s on the offices. But most of my stuff is 60 plus, right?
Right.
So, you get in a lot of weight with them, but it's
Voice.
it's very intriguing to me. I'm actually kind of impressed with it.
Mhm.
For sure. I'm gonna do a little more research, may even contact you a little bit. Cause I don't know if it's an application that I'll be able to use just because of I just don't have that many small units, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
My
For sure.
stuff is so big. But I'm dealing with a complete different bear than what you're dealing with. I mean, you're looking at restaurants and that kind of stuff. And I think from that standpoint, if your unit is saving you that kind of money, it's definitely worth it.
I appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
high praise. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And I agree. And that's what we like to do. We like to find these types of products. And then, Mike, we're all in different situations here, but we're all in that kind of world of HVAC. Of course, we're trying to sell products. We're trying to help people with repairs. Mike is on the other side, but we're all just in this world, and we have problems. And then sometimes, and we have pain, right? And then we have things that can solve that pain and that are exciting and interesting. So, Devin, you were going to say something there.
No, I was just saying that's always the biggest thing. Everyone's dealing with pain and trying to find a
Yep,
solution that makes sense for everybody. And that's always the challenge.
absolutely. Any final thoughts?
Yeah.
We're coming up on an hour of HVAC talk. Bill, go ahead.
Just Devin, I just had a question. Like, what do you have for install base now? Have you done a few of these or a lot of these, or what's it look like?
So we're finishing the design right now. We're going to the final stages actually on Friday tomorrow with our engineering team. And so we're going to have our kind of beta samples here in Phoenix in about 4 to 6 weeks. And so we'll have all that with all that data feeding up into the cloud. And so that's when we push all that. And the unit's going to be AHRI certified January, February.
Oh,
Nice.
wow. Yeah. So 2025, we're moving units.
Yeah.
And these units that you're kind of your case study type units, people could tap into that and kind of see it live. Like you, so that will be cool,
Yes.
right? Like you can see the unit that is working and see kind of what you would see with your own unit because it's going to capture that data, put it up in the cloud. That's really interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be
Mike,
our push is the data side of that for everyone to feel positive and comfortable, right? Especially the technicians and guys who've been in the industry forever. There's been a lot of things coming flash in the pan tech that try to make, hey, we can save you this. And it's, it lasts a couple of years, then it moves
Yeah.
on. So we know that, time is critical, right? For us being here 10 years, we finally kind of earned our spurs into it. And now the next level up is like, here, you have to believe me. Look at the numbers here and take your own assessment.
Devin, if folks want more information about your product, where do we want to send them?
Go to enviric.com. It's NVIRIQ.com.
Enviric.com. Connect with Devin here on LinkedIn. Guys, I'm going to upload this one to YouTube as well. Devin, I'll share it with you if you want to share some on social media. This has been a lot of fun, though, talking about HVAC, getting a chance to have my coworker in here as my co-host today. That was a lot of fun. Thanks, Bill. Mike the Hammer, he came through for me. I didn't think he was going to show up, but he did, and I appreciate that. And Devin, great. Glad we connected, man. I was just looking, I said, this is a cool product. I want to share that with folks, and that's what we're trying to do here. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time. We got a lot of cool episodes coming, so stay tuned.
Perfect. Gentlemen, thank you.
See ya.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.